AV5, the alternative view.
So that's what the police did to him. He is a poet.
And only a week before, I'd been sitting in a car with a friend ranting about how all these things aren't working and everything's falling apart and I can't find anywhere to live. I mean, you wouldn't know it to look at me, but I am a little bit of a drama king. Who would have thought? Whew, glad I got that one out of the way. I feel like we really know each other well now. That's wonderful. You know the kind of rant? Yeah? Everyone's had that kind of rant every now and again, yes? It's not very optimal. It's a bit of a whinge. And he looked at me and he said, Simon, you're always talking to me about invoking the power of the universe. Why don't you tell me what you do want rather than what you don't want? And I said, fine, I want my own bedroom, I want my own study, I want woods, I want fields, I want to be in nature, and I want like cosmic housemates who have some sort of connection with spirit or nature or a guru or something that's alternative but that keeps them grounded. That's what I want. Now, prayer comes in many different styles. If you move in here, it'll be £350 a month, and you'll get your own bedroom, your own study. We've got 35 acres of private woods. There's a swimming pool in the garden. I just started to sort of glaze over a little bit. When Quadrilla came to Balcombe, I just popped down to see what a protest looked like. Protectors. Words that were floating through my head just then were like anarchists, hippies, all the favourite media jargon words they use to segregate people into groups to keep us divided so that they can continue to conquer us and make us feel separate. Yes, protectors, but I didn't know that word when I went down that first day, and I watched toilets being put up, I watched kitchens being put up, I watched homes being erected on the side of the road, and within about 3 weeks, I realised that I wanted to spend more and more time down there. And then, while I was sitting at my computer desk, I started to have Jerusalem. You know, the William Blake? And did, yes, those feet in ancient times. You may start to see now why I got arrested for singing. I'm not a singer, I'm a poet. I mean... And this tune kept on going around in my head, and it round and around and around. And eventually I thought, I must sort this out. So I started to rewrite the lyrics to Jerusalem. William Blake is an idol of mine. He was an extraordinary man. He was a visionary. He really was. You know, I don't know if anyone's read Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience. Two opposing views, the light and the dark. I love that because it shows you the path. And that's really important for now because we live in a very dark world and light is all around us. But we have to learn how to find and then cross this bridge. And it's a bridge of perception. I meet people daily who think that we're living in heaven, and I meet people daily who think we're living in hell. Right now, and we all seem to exist in the same physical space, and yet we don't. Can you all just say yes? Yes! Hooray! Good. And did they frag in ancient times, poisoning waters once so clean? And it was all about their filthy rigs of doom on England's peasant pasture scene, and it all just fell into place, and so many of the words were akin to the original that when people started to sing it on sight, people led right into it and felt impassioned about England's green and peasant land. Even people who aren't that patriotic were doing it because the song, the tune, and the lyrics invoke something that gives most people goosebumps, and people who don't think they can sing forget they can't sing and sing anyway. 2 weeks later, we had 600 people on the side of the road singing lots of awesome songs, including the new version of Jerusalem.
And did they fly in ancient times, poisoning waters once so clean?
There was a particular police officer, Mark Redbourne, who was just absolutely wonderful. If he hadn't been married to a lady, I would have asked for his hand. And I told him, and he was kind of chuffed in a bit of a weird way. We had a couple of hugs, got caught on camera, brilliant. Seriously, whether you're gay or straight, flirting with someone who's trying to lord authority over you is a marvellous way to disarm them. An alternative version of God Save the Queen. Now, I don't know how many people know the original words to God Save the Queen. If you know any more than the first verse, just think about it. Raise your hand if you know the second, third, fourth verses of God Save the Queen. Isn't that interesting? Because I didn't know. I had this event, and then I came home, and that night I got a hot flush, and this voice in my head said, "Do you know the original lyrics to God Save the Queen?" No, I don't know. So I went online and I looked for them. So we're praying to the power of the universe to give the Queen and the monarchy the power to destroy her enemies. The third verse suggests that we should have the universe give all its bounty to the Queen and her family, and whatever we need in terms of our personal bounty, we can just sort of stand at the bottom of the table of the monarchy with our open mouths and hope for some crumbs. That's what the third verse invokes. Now, if you know anything about the power of prayer, and I'm not talking so much about religion, I'm talking more about quantum physics and the power of attraction and the way that we think, speak, and listen our reality into existence. Everyone's heard all the way through this song. Everyone's heard it once, at least. So what happens is that when you hear the tune, the words that are embedded in your subconscious get sung out of you vibrationally. Yes? So even if you're not singing it, we as a people are constantly giving this energy, singing ourselves out of our own individual sovereignty, and continuing to give the monarchy power by accident. Now, people may have their stories and thoughts and feelings about NLP, and, you can see Darren Brown doing amazing things with it, and random people in the street giving their wallet and stuff. If it's used for dark purposes, it's not a pleasant thing. The media use it all the time in the way they do their adverts, of course. We know that. We've been programmed since birth through media, magazines, upbringings, schooling, and various other things. So we're already programmed. We're already brainwashed. The trick for us now is to unlearn nearly everything we know. Would you just shout out yes if you agree with that statement? Yes. Okay, right. This is a very exciting time for us now. Very exciting indeed. Because by unlearning what we used to know, we have the power as individuals and in groups, which is even more powerful, to rewrite the script of our physical environment. And that is one of the opportunities that is being offered right now for various different reasons. Now, about 6 months ago, actually, before I do that, do you want to hear the new lyrics to God Save the Queen? I don't know all of the conspiracies, but the ones I do know terrify me. I don't want to be terrified anymore. I'm bored of being scared, and I'm bored of fighting with banks, and I'm bored of fighting with the police. As it turns out, it was more fun to flirt with them than fight with them. That's another story, but we will get onto it in this hour. How long have we got? I've got so much to share. I'm so sorry. Right, 5:23. Right, we're a quarter of the way through. I need to really be zippy here. Right. We now know who we are. We are the choir. Long may we sing. We will forget no more. We are the lion's roar, caretaking sea and land and shore and our sovereignty. Thank you. But people in the anti-fracking community have been singing them all over England and sending me videos, like in their living rooms, singing together. It's just extraordinary. But I'm not even a singer. I got arrested. So I was arrested that morning. There was this eviction. There was 25 bailiffs up the road. There was the police all around. We were standing in the driveway of the site. But the traffic was coming past. There were no lorries trying to come in and out. No one was actually in the way. And I couldn't stop singing, and I was almost crying because they were putting hydrochloric acid down, and nothing we were doing was making any difference at all. And there's all these bailiffs up the way, and this voice in my head and in my heart was just saying, "Don't stop singing, don't stop singing." So I was on a megaphone. Someone was holding the megaphone. I was holding the mouthpiece, and we're doing Jerusalem, and then God Save the Queen, and then Jerusalem, back to back, back to back, back to back, while the police are going around trying to shout Section 14 of the Public Order Act out to everybody, because that's the bit that if people hear that Section 14, they can legally be moved across the road to the protest pen on the other side of the road so that they can be managed peacefully like a herd of sheep. Out of the way of the, woo, with our banners, woo, yay, we're protesting, we feel so free, hooray. No way. Not on my watch. But I wasn't deliberately being outrageous, I was just singing. And then these three police are looking at me, and I'm looking into their eyes, and I'm thinking, brother to brother, heart to heart, don't stop singing, this is it. In a minute they're going to cry and take off their helmets, it's going to be amazing. No. You can see this isn't going to end well, right? So, yeah, so I finished a particular rendition of this Jerusalem, and suddenly I'm being, and I'm like, and you saw the pictures of me up there, you know, that was not like, oh, you know, and I went stiff as a board, I was being carted off, and I remember shouting out, arrested for singing, arrested for singing! You know, that was what the photograph was, me in mid-rah. So they took me off to a van, and then they took me to the police station, and then there was this tall policeman called Rob, who was terribly handsome. And this was at Crawley Police Station, so there's about 15 police behind the desk, and then there's this Rob chap, and there's this lovely sergeant lady behind the desk who's been so engaging. I mean, it was like, oh, under different circumstances, I'd love to be friends with you, lady. I didn't feel guilty of anything, so I was just happy to share my joy, and it was terribly exciting being arrested, you know, I didn't, you know. And anyway, this Rob, he kneels down like this. He's got his hands on my ankle. And he looks up at me and he says, I'm really sorry, it's just what we've got to do, I've got to go all the way up your inside thigh, you're not going to like it. And before I could stop myself, I said, want to bet? 15 police nearly wet themselves behind the desk. He went scarlet. And although I was the arrestee and he was the policeman, the power shifted dramatically. And I was just standing there feeling like a very happy boy, looking down at this rather handsome man in a uniform. I mean, what could be better on a Tuesday afternoon or a Tuesday morning? It was brilliant. No, I was determined not to feel constricted or upset or discombobulated, and I just thought I'm going to show them what joy looks like. Even now, this is joy. Deal with it, quit your job and follow me, you know, that... So, how long have we got? I'm loving this. Are you loving this? I've got half an hour. Awesome. Hooray! Sorry. That's the inner child. That was about 4, just so you know what you just saw. If your inner child needs to come out to play, let it out. It's so much healthier. Doctors will call it schizophrenia. I say it's a healthy way to live. So anyway, then I went into this police, and they were like, oh, you've got to take your trousers off because you've got an elasticated waistband that you could strangle yourself with. So they made me wear these paper bloody trousers. Literally, they were made of, like, I don't know, like paper. And as I was being taken off this cell, I realised that there was going to be nothing for me to do. And I didn't know how long I was going to be there. So I said, well, I'm a poet and a storyteller, and I need a pen and paper. They said, well, we're not going to let you have an elasticated waistband. We're certainly not going to let you have something you can stab yourself with, literally. And I said, oi, what happened to innocent until proven guilty? I want to do some writing, sort me out. And because I'd been so flirtatious, outrageous, and charming already, there wasn't really any reason to say no to me, and I didn't look like, you know, someone who might try and harm themselves. So they gave me a blunt pencil and some bits of paper. And I went into my cell. And then I wrote this over 2 hours. And I called it Arrested for Singing. So how do we say no to this corporate agenda? Who, if not the police, will be humanity's defender? As I sit here in this prison cell, I know not what to do, though I feel the answer stirring in the hearts of me and you. Thank you very much. So, I finish writing this poem, and then I think, I don't know why, but I've got 2 more sheets of paper. I'm going to write it out again a second time, because I've got a feeling if I don't, I'm going to lose the original, and I don't ever lose an original. I don't ever let my first draft go away. And I don't know why I did that, but I did. And then at 5 o'clock, and I'd been in this cell now for about 5 hours, sitting just looking at the ceiling and the big round thing in the corner, which probably was watching me on 17,000 cameras or whatever. Go away. This man came in, he said, hello, my name's Brian, I'm your solicitor, I'm from Kelly's. I'm like, wow, I didn't even make a phone call. Marvellous, what do I do? He said, what is that? I said, it's a poem I've just written. He's like, you wrote a poem? I'm like, yes, I'm a poet, and now I can say I'm a real poet because I've written a poem in prison, you know. And he said, well, tell it to me. So I did, and he just sort of went, holy crap. That's a witness, that's a prepared statement. CID are interviewing you in 15 minutes. I said, what? He said, well, you've now been marked as a person of interest, so your exit interview is going to be handled by CID. They're going to tap your phone, probably. They've already hacked into your Facebook. And you are now being watched as a sort of a ringleader or a this or a that or the other because they can't believe that this whole thing isn't orchestrated by a small group of devious people. It's amazing, isn't it, that they really think that? It's unthinkable. Well, they do think that. Anyway, so he said, CID is interviewing, and what I'm going to recommend to you as your legal counsel right now is that when we get into the CID interview, you read him this poem as your prepared statement and then answer no comment to every other question. And my heart just sank, and I thought, oh my God, I can't do that. That's so naughty. He said, you can and you will. This is brilliant, and this covers your arse. This is what happened to you, isn't it? This is exactly how those moments running up to your arrest happened, isn't it? I said, yes, it is. He said, then it's your prepared statement. It's brilliant. I want a copy for my wife. Can we photocopy it before we leave? I said, yeah, all right. We got into CID. I read the poem. He then asked me loads of questions. I tell you, have you ever done that thing when you're a kid where you're trying to eat a donut and you're not allowed to lick your lips? Okay, imagine that 10 times worse. And their CID people are brilliant. They've got nice suits on. They're charming and charismatic and witty, and they try and do the thing. And he was asking me all these questions, and I'm like, hey, no comment, hey, no comment, hey, no. It was like I had some sort of, you know, physical. It was really hard. I mean, I like to talk. You can imagine how hard it was, right? I mean, it was really hard. Because I had answers to every question. This is the point. I had answers to every question, and he told me don't answer them anyway because he's going to try and build a case against you. And if you answer the questions without working out how he puts them together in his scaffolding, you won't know what sort of structure he's building out of the answers that you give. And I thought about that, and I thought, right, okay, fair enough, no comment, no comment. Finally, the interview was over. I left. 3 police said, can we have photocopies of the poem? We've heard about the poem. I mean, all the rules just went out the window because it was me being a bit of a joke, you know, on purpose, you know. That's the best way to, if you know that you can be subject to ridicule, ridicule yourself. Because then people are laughing at you, with you. It comes from being bullied, and if you can learn how to turn it on its head, it means you can stand on a stage and potentially have brain freeze in the middle of a poem like yesterday and not collapse into a puddle. It's brilliant. Where did we get to? We did that, I left, then this whole saga and the court dates, and they cancel, and then some cop who has to give evidence against me wants to go on a holiday, and all these people, these witnesses are being called and then dropped again. They messed us around for months, eh? And eventually we had a 3-day trial. Now, in preparation for this trial, I thought, what am I going to do? Okay, so I thought, how am I going to prepare myself for court? Well, I love Netflix. I do have a small addictive personality. Could be smoking, though I've pretty much given up that now. If you gave me a cigarette earlier outside, you'll know that's not completely true today. So, addictive personality. Netflix. Okay, so, you know, I don't know if you do this, but if you've got some free time and you can justify in your head why it's okay to discover a new series where there's 5 seasons with 24 episodes in a season that you need to watch right now, and you just sort of dive in and swim through this incredible adventure or story that lasts if you were watching it real time, it would have taken you 5 years to watch it, right? So I discovered The Good Wife. Anyone know The Good Wife? Alicia Florrick. Go! She's brilliant. Anyway, it's basically, he's a politician, the wife works in a legal firm, and it follows their story over several years. They've got a couple of kids, and some stuff happens. But there's a lot of scenes in it in courtrooms. So I'm like, right, this is my homework for court. I'm going to look at all these scenes in courtrooms, and I'm going to watch very, very carefully, deliberately. Although it's American rather than English, I will be able to mine for the gold in this TV show, because it does come from reality, in fact, how prosecution works, how defence works, and what they're going to attempt to do to me. Because not only am I not going to lose, I'm going to bloody win this one in style. I was singing on the side of the road, and they're trying to shut down human freedom. Let's do this. So that was my wonderful reasoning. And I got to watch loads of episodes a day, you know, eating popcorn and, you know, just, Ian, yes, it's all right, I've got an addictive personality, but this is homework. Nom, 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 nom. Fine. So anyway, I probably watched 4.5 seasons of this over a month, 6 weeks. And anyway, then it got to court. And the first 2 days were agony, because it was like lots of people talking about you. Not to you, about you. People mainly talking about, my barrister, though, a chap called Tom Wainwright, lives in London. Kelly's, the solicitors, was linked with Garden Chambers, I think they're called, in London. So this amazing, tiny little guy with short dark hair and very blue eyes and a tongue like a samurai sword. He was incredible. Anyway, he basically battered every witness who was speaking against me. And then we had Mark Redbourne, the cop that I love. So he was called as a witness against me because he was there on the morning of my arrest, and he had said to me, "Simon, you're not going to cause any trouble today, are you?" And I said, "No, Mark, I'm just here to sing." And he said, "You know, there's a Section 14 in place." And I said, "Yeah, but I'm just here to sing." But Mark, it was amazing because he was there in his uniform, being asked to explain whatever he remembered that would show why I was a guilty boy. And everyone in the room could see him sweating under the collar because he felt like he was being asked to tell on a best friend. It was amazing. I was sitting behind the little glass thing having a little sob of just general gratitude, really, actually, because it felt like an exquisite thing to be involved in. I mean, I feel really blessed to have had this experience. I really, really do. And then he got cross-examined by Tom. That's the thing. If the prosecution calls a witness, my little Tom can take them apart afterwards. So he was like, "So, Mr. Redbourne, you mentioned that you spoke to Simon earlier and he called you Mark. Does that mean you two were on first-name terms?" "Right. And would you say that you regard each other fondly? Is it not true that you also hug from time to time?" Because I told him all what happened. I told Tom everything. I told him I love Mark. And that Mark will be brilliant to cross-examine. So Tom was like, "Brilliant, we'll use that, that's great." And, you know, how close did you get to each other? It's like, wow, you know, no one would believe it. I'm going to have to write it in a book. Yes, that will happen. So there was that. And then it came to me trying to get my poem in. Because it had been in it was my argument, it was my prepared statement. So then it's the judge saying, "Well, Mr. Crabtree, very sort of no-nonsense kind of man. He was, "We don't do poetry in court." And Tom was like, "Yes, and it's his prepared statement. And it describes what happened in the 3 minutes running up to his arrest and is therefore not only admissible, but important to the case." And the judge was like, "Yes, but, you know, Mr. Welch has talked about this Zen zone and this bubble and this heart thing. And that when looking into the eyes of 3 arresting officers, not being able to distinguish the difference between them and, as he put it, 3 tall grannies." It just came out of my mouth, you know, and that was what the newspaper ran off with. I mean, I looked like a freak in the media. It was terrible. You know, got a lot of phone calls, though. It was great. And he said, "And if Simon Welsh attempts to do that again, I mean, obviously, if someone moves into an altered space in the heart, there's going to need to be an expert witness to actually say that that is happening. If he's trying to recreate this in my courtroom, I'm not an expert witness, so I don't want to hear the poem." So Tom's like, "Mr. Welsh is not attempting to recreate that." And I said, "Yes, you know," I kept on trying not to call him Your Honour, because as a magistrate, you just called him Sir. And he was a good guy, Mr. Crabtree. He was a good guy. And he said, I said, "Mr. Crabtree, I am going to tell a poem, if you let me, to illustrate what happened in those moments. Effectively, it'll be me giving more testimony in rhyme. That's it. I can't manufacture the Zen zone." And he was like, "Well, you may tell it then, but please try to refrain from any emotional expression and read it in as monotone a tone as you can. And so I'm like, wow, no one's ever asked me to do that before. This is so weird. So I just went... But I kept it calm enough that he didn't stop me, because I knew if I went too far, he would just shut me down. And I didn't want that. I don't like being shut down by anybody, ever. So you're great, thanks. Give yourself a round of applause, please, right now. You. Yes! Thank you. I'm feeling very, very, very well received by you right now, so I just wanted to express that gratitude, because it's awesome. If you were to optimize that statement, it would sound like this. On the subject of how long you've got, rather than not being shut down. One's destructive, the other's creative. I love you too, Daisy. We have work to do. And I do indeed have 7 minutes. Right, I'm going to be speedy and keep it quick. Gosh. Can you give me any more time, Ian? Like tomorrow or Monday or something? Right, 7 minutes. Okay, so I told the poem. He sort of frowned his way through it, and he looked at me and said, Mr. Welsh, you did inject a little emotion into that. You could see he was trying not to smile, though. It was brilliant. Because he didn't know what was going on in his room. It was all anarchy, but not spoken about. It was just energetic disobedience, you know. And then I had the prosecution. What a slippery man, Mr. Richards. He had slick back hair and a horrid pinstripe suit with a lining on the inside that he kept on wanting to sort of show off a little bit. You know. And it's just like, oh, God, and no, it was just, yeah, you know. You could imagine he might do that, and then there would be oil, and he'd have to kind of... I'm not being nice about him. He's probably a lovely man. His wife was just about to have a baby. He's probably lovely outside of that job. Oh, by the way, I have a little aversion therapy technique that I use. When I slag somebody off, or myself, or have any other kind of suboptimal thought, I ping it. Ow! Ooh. And then, wait. And then I replace the suboptimal thought with its optimal equivalent. So in this case, it would be Mr. Richards is an awesome father and an excellent husband. And then I have to kiss my wrist. And it trains me out of suboptimal thinking. It's awesome. Right, so, you're getting all my secrets today, you really are. This is excellent value. I mean, I don't even share this with friends, because they'd think I was weird. So anyway, this 2-hour cross-examination, it was extraordinary. It was like this. And I was standing there, and I was listening to every question, and he was getting so exasperated, because I understood from watching so many episodes of The Good Wife that what he was doing was trying to, like CID had done, to construct a series of questions, my answers to which would fulfill a framework that would make me look guilty. And so if I can answer all his questions accurately outside of his silly, greasy hair scaffolding. He's got lovely hair. Okay, all right. I know, I'm sure he really is lovely. Don't say... I can't. My wrist is hurting now. I'm just be really careful. Sorry. So his second to last question was, Mr. Welsh, can you at least agree that you gave the arresting officers the impression that you were ignoring them? And I heard it, and I saw his little and I'm like, no, I can't. If I say yes to that I gave them the impression, it's actually, the impression is a gift from me to them, and then it becomes my responsibility what they made up in their heads about what I was doing. And as it came out of my mouth, I thought, oh yeah, that's true. He was trying to get me to incriminate myself with something so seemingly innocuous. Can you at least admit that you gave your arresting officers the impression that you were ignoring them? Doesn't that sound like a harmless question? Yeah, well, I suppose I did. Got you. Bang. Done. That's it. One wrong answer in 2 hours, and they would have had me. Basically, and he was doing it all the way through. But that was the one that really shone out, and I just looked at him. No, don't. You see, the training really works. You see that, yeah? It's really good. You know, I want to live in an optimal world, so a little bit of self-harm, you know, it goes a long way. done properly. So, and then at the end, his final question was, I submit to you that basically the reason that you answered no comment to all of CID's questions was because you didn't have a story, and now you've had a lawyer and a solicitor, and you've got all the answers, and you're giving your story now, and blah, 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 blah. And I just looked at him and I said, and I wasn't trying to be flippant, but he didn't ask me a question. He said, I submit to you that. So I just looked at him and I said, Mr. Richards, you can submit to me whatever you want. Doesn't mean I'm going to accept it. And the judge said, Mr. Welsh, please answer the question. I said, he hasn't asked the question. At least he has. I'm like, oh, so hang on, is he saying, are you making this up? Can I have this paraphrased for me? Because I submit to you that blah, 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 blah really isn't a question to me. Is he asking me if I made this up? And the judge said, yes, he is. And I just turned, I said, Mr. Richards, as we started this, I was asked to put my hand on the Bible. I was asked, do you believe in God? I said yes. That should be enough. What is going on here? And I claimed my righteous anger in rather an affected and a gregarious way, admittedly. And it was weird. It was like writing a script or being in a play. And at the end, then we called time, like a match. And the points were added up, and then the prosecution, the defence, they had the thing, you know, with their closing arguments, and we set a date for the final thing in a different town, which was about 2 weeks ago. And it was scary, and lots of people came to support me. Thank you. And he just made me cry. He just sat there in his judge's chair, and all the people were there, coming back together again. Like, it was like a reunion, but like not. And my mum was there. She saw that she did the whole thing with me. She was like, warrior mum. And he said, Mr. Welsh, when you spoke about the heart space, I really didn't believe you. And over the time of getting to know and understand you, and having heard the witness statements from people in your village who say that you gave the village a voice, and listening to the way you have argued your case, I have to concede that what you said about not being able to recognize those officers while they were speaking to you may be true. You are an unusual defendant, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. You are free to go. Ian has sorted it out for me so that if you want to buy a copy of my book, which is first edition, hardback, it's called All Hail the 21st Century. It's a journey out of darkness and into light, which is very important. 18 poems, going from quite a narcissistic, angry, embittered point of view about how ugly and screwed up the world is, through these stories and adventures that kind of show you actually that there might be a silver lining, or that maybe things aren't completely black and white, and by the end, there's this sense of hope. The whole book has a CD in the back, which has all the audio recorded on the CD. It's £20, which will include postage and packing. Yodel might turn up tomorrow with a box of books. There'll be 40 in the box. I do have more than that, but I can send them to you at home. So £20. I would encourage you, though, not to just get one, but to get 4 or 5, really. Because all your friends are going to want them. They're first editions, and there aren't that many left. Thank you so much. You have been wonderful.